Welcome to Foxhole. Foxhole is a massively multiplayer game where you will work with thousands of players to shape the outcome of a persistent online war. In the world of Foxhole, and a lot of this will be on the dev branch. So, within this first screen, if you were ever curious as to what shard or what server to play on, where it says pre-release, you will not have that whenever the full game is released. Where you see Able, this is going to be recorded on the dev branch. There are currently 2 full functioning servers for this persistent war. Charlie is for newer or returning players who've not been in Foxhole for a while, and Able is where the regular war and where a lot of veterans of the game tend to play. For this instructional video and video series, we will be in the dev branch. Now, before we even dive into the game itself, there are 2 areas I want you to actually pay attention to go to. Go to Options, go to Audio. Make sure your ambient volume, your effects volume, the music you can have up. The music track's actually pretty good. I'm going to keep this turned down for now, so it's not going to be overpowering. Voice chat is the easiest way to communicate with allies and talk a little trash to the enemy as possible. So your output device will be your desktop audio. In order to find out what your desktop audio is, press Control, hit Escape. Down where it says Volume, you're going to left click. You're going to click this little button. This right here, the AVT GC573, that is your NVIDIA output desktop speakers. I keep everything below 60% because I know how loud some people are, as well as how loud I am. My in-game microphone is a Samsung satellite. That is what I use to communicate with people. If you are unsure where to go for your output settings, meaning, or your input settings, your input device, your microphone, press Control, hit Escape, right click, go to Sound Settings. On here, this is where you will be able to find out what microphone you were using. You can also adjust the volume as needed. Ensure that your microphone is the same as what is selected in game. So I have the Samsung satellite for the microphone, Samsung satellite for the microphone. That is these basic sound settings that a lot of people fail to understand. And because I like to talk a little bit of trash to the enemy or even have a gentleman's conversation, I have mute enemy players off. Now, within this, there's a push to talk function on your keyboard. For me, it's a little different because I have a 12 keybind MMO mouse that I like to use. You're going to go to keyboard and take a look at everything there is to go over. I will cover the vast majority of these. Aircraft will come in a later video until I have a firm understanding as to what all of this is. It will all be in a later video. You're going to scroll all the way down until you are in communication controls. Your local chat is going to be T for talk, and then your local is going to be G for group, or such as being in a squad or communicating. For me, because it's on a completely different setting, I have mine set to my 10, 11, and 12 keybinds so that it's a little easier for me to do so. Because instead of moving my hand all the way across to the G and key, I can, like my left hand all the way to the G and T, those 2 keys, I can just move my right thumb to the 11 and 12 keybind or equals and hyphen. That's a little bit more advanced than what people that are just getting into the game need to know. That's generally it. You can mess around with the graphics if you want. A lot of this I have set the way it is. FPS, go as high as you as it'll allow. I think it caps at 144. I am 100% unsure. Sprint mode, have it set to toggle so that you're not constantly holding shift. Driver minimap you can have on. I have reverse invert steering direction. And I will have the flight controls and everything else on. There is a quote-unquote streamer mode, but I will cover that in a much later video, especially for the live streamers and content creators. And if you're like me on a 2 PC setup, it's very, very, very complicated on setting up with a map cover and having the keybinds register. I will have a video set for whenever we cover that. So when all of that covered, and we haven't even dove into the game yet, on here, you're going to click play. You have two factions to select from. You have the Colonials and you have the Wardens. For the vast majority of this, we are going to go with the Colonials. There are certain things that I am going to be covering with the Wardens, which are the specific tanks, the specific weapons, push guns, boats, and aircraft that I will be going through and covering as a Warden player or with help from other Warden players. So for here, we are going to go with the Colonials. This just gives you the tally of everything. It'll be, this won't be IRL days, this will be in-game days, which every in-game day and night cycle is a full hour. Each day cycle is 30 minutes, each night cycle is 30 minutes. You have your rank, you have your name, you have your time in war, you have your casualties, the total amount, everything from this one screen. From here, you click deploy. And there's always going to be a queue. If it's a brand new war, or if there's something that's been, set in place to do so. Now that we're through the queue, you will see the very beginning of this, which is your home region. Please note that the sounds are a little different, as well as the compass, the map, the user interface, and a lot of others are completely different than what the vanilla game is considered to be. I will have a link in the description below for the mods that I use. This way you can actually experience everything in its entirety. Now, you'll see where it says voice chat enabled. Press 0 to disable. It's also the same as when you want to just completely disable your mic. You disable everything around it and all the other stuff. To see the home region, press M as in Mike to see the map. And you can see here, this is your home island, this is your home region, based on your faction. Colonials will have this area. Warden's home region looks a little different. I will briefly explain what every single one of these means shortly. But in order to understand where you have to deploy, there are two areas that you go to. You have one over to the left and one on the right with two swords that say deploy. For every single item on here, you have your bases, your resources, your structures, your locations, which show the different areas on stuff, the different map posts, your region zones, which I will show once we deploy, your railway tracks, intelligence, and intel coverage. These have not been updated yet. So within the map mod, I cannot tell what the enemy large aircrafts and what the allied aircrafts look like. Let's go ahead and deploy first and take a look at the overview of what the map looks like. To get an understanding on what the map looks and understanding movement, your WASD keys are as follows. W is forward, S is back, A is to your left, D is to your right. So move the camera as we're looking and also moving. That is your middle mouse button. You hold W at the same time, you'll be able to run in the direction that you were turning the camera. To look down as well as aim, hold the right mouse button and you can kind of pinpoint exactly how you want to look, get the directional and all this other stuff. Now, if you want a permanent aim, here's a very, very interesting thing that you could do. You can normally kind of go over the chat and it'll essentially keep it aimed in. You have different chats here. You have all, region, squad, regiment, lodging, intel, and whisper. All is every single chat that's open. Region is for the specific hex you are in. Squads are for if you are in a squad, which is located here. And there are several squads to join. You can either join an open squad or request a message to join a lock squad. Regiment is based on if you are in any regiment, and I need to do this because that's my old regiment. But you'll see where it'll have different regiments based on people inside your region or anything of that nature. At the time of recording this, I am with the Bone Regiment, and the group of guys that I play with have been very, very fun. Continuing on, you have your logistics, where there is a call for specific items to be delivered to certain areas. You have your intel to relay intel of enemies or asking for a quick reaction force or QRF to a specific section. And whispers are from anyone that you receive a direct message from. All is your world chat, so it is based on what you have active and what is available. To first get an overview as to what is going on with the war and where you want to deploy to, there is this state of the war tent, which will have a map located right here. Zoom in and out, you hold your left control and you scroll in with your mouse. Press E to interact with any vehicle's inventory, any bunker base or town base or storage depot or seaport's inventory, or to read any type of sign or anything that has been left, or to modify anything you yourself have put. So we're going to press E, and as I said, the map is going to be a little different than what is currently available. Currently, right now, you have these 3 hexes right here with everything going in line as you see where the mouse is going. All of these are original hexes from what the game has originally been. Basin Seanook, Speaking Woods, Howe County, Callum's Cape, The Moors, Reaching Trail, Violet Pit, Clans Head Valley, Morgan's Crossing, Godcroft, Stilkin Shelf, Weather Expanse, Marvin Hollow, Callahan's Passage, the Lynn of Mercy, Stone Cradle, Nevish Line, Baronet Coast, Fisherman's Row, Warbreaker Isles, Stemma Landing, Westgate, Origin, Ashfield, Saberport, King's Cage, Lynn of Mercy, Deadlands, Lockmore, Umbral Wildwood, Heartlands, Red River, Calici, Great March, Acrithia, Shackled Chasm, the Drowned Vale, the Clastra, Owlet's Bite, Terminus, Reaver's Pass, Endless Shore, Tempest Island, and the Fingers. Those are all the original hexes that the map has been for the previous 131 wars, and even before then it was a condensed version and even more condensed than what it is. Once the airborne update is complete and once it is released, you will have Quarter Strand, Ari Peak, Oliver's Wake, Palatine Berm, in the gutter in the north area. Over in the southern areas, you have Lycos Island, or Isle, Piper's Enclave, Resta, Onyx, and Tyrant Foothills. The vast majority of the items and hexes that are usually, this is subject to change, per war at the start of every single one. You'll typically have Fisherman's Row, half of Fander's Coast, or Fander Coast, half of King's Cage, half of Lena Mercy, Deadlands, the Drowned Bell, the Clastra, Endless and Stilken, and Tempest, all in conflict. Everything south of them, basically think of where the river is, so to speak. This river that is going through, right through the middle. All of that south is what the Colonials typically have. Everything north is what the Wardens typically have. I am going to minimize both of these so that it's not going to be cluttered. To join Foxhole's official Discord for more information, you can click the Discord icon and definitely join on there. Scroll in and out of a map. Just scroll it up goes inward, down goes outward. So from here, we are going to go to Calakai at Bake Ridge. This way I can show you the very basics on aiming, on shooting, on moving, everything, and go over every single map icon as it lays out. So from here, you'll notice that typically there will be a queue and on just about everywhere that you can go to. So we're going to find an area that I know has an engineering center, and we're going to go from there. Now to talk in here, hold T, and you can talk to people, or you can hold G to be able to essentially talk to other people. A few other controls that I did not go over. You have C, which is crouch, and you'll be able to like slowly walk in here, and X, which is prone. Prone allows for much more stable on aiming and slow crawling to kind of move away from overhead fire and everything. And I'm going to keep these muted for the time being until we move on. So we are going to go in, instead of Calakai, to Bake Ridge, where I originally wanted to go. Let's see if there's an engineering center over in Origin, or anywhere for that matter. And as you can see, all these icons have different meanings and different items. If none have an engineering center that are easy to get to, or that is heavily queued, then we'll just figure out a different way. So, in the meantime, I am going to hop into a queue for Bake Ridge. And you'll typically note where there's different items of interest where they are flashing. That is usually where you want to deploy if you want to be a frontline infantryman, a frontline medic, frontline engineer, you name it. Also, frontline logic has its place. The vast majority of the roles I will go over in another video, but for now, this is just your bare bones basic and your intro into Foxhole. So we are going to jump in a queue, and we are going to be waiting. Okay, so once you have gotten through any queue that you're a part of, the first thing you want to do is check your inventory of any town base. So here you see we have a limited amount of supply because, one, this is the backline, and again, as stated in earlier in the video, this is Dead Branch. So things are going to be a little interesting as they go through. If you're just wanting to instantly go on and fight, just grab yourself a rifle and 2 clips of ammo with an additional magazine for your pistol. Now, to take a look at what's going on, you're going to want a radio. And there are 2 different types of radio now. There used to be 1. You have 1 radio which transmits items on the ground, and 1 that transmits aerial intelligence. If you want something to where you can get both, the radio backpack. For the sake of this tutorial, let's say there's a radio backpack and I have a pair of binoculars, which are these, so we can take a look at things going over. I've already stashed a couple things waiting on certain things to go through. And I have a liaison transmitter, a pair of binos, and a radio backpack. Understand the different slots on how your inventory is. You have your main with an attachment such as an osprey or a bayonet, your secondary, and your tertiary weapon. Then you have your large item slot, your headgear, your uniform, and your equipment item. So this is where you would put your radio backpack, anything that where it says equipment slot, extra equipment, it goes in that spot. Same thing, you know, if you're carrying something and it just says, oh, hey, we're going to shove it in the inventory, there's a default setting for that right here. But before we get going on anything, let's go over a couple of items within any and all inventory stockpiles of a buck base, a town hall, etc. Starting with the first tab right here. You'll have an inventory for whatever you're interacting with. This is where you have every item within the building you're interacting with. If it has a stockpile capability, like a town hall, a safe house, a bunker base, storage depot, seaport, a underground fortress, an airport, like an airfield storage depot, it will have a stockpile list name right here. You'll have your inventory off to your top left and your backpack to your bottom left. There are certain upgrades that you need to pay attention to if you are on an active front and that area is brand new. You have your base and your town if you are within town. Provisional garrison, small garrison, and large garrison. Small garrison enables AI whenever there's not enough people around, but provisional if you have anywhere between 10 to 20 people that set their spawns here. And if this is completely upgraded, it will enable AI so long as there's 10 to 20 people still within that area of the base. Small garrison will keep the AI on permanently if it's in a town or a backline area. And large garrison will just allow the base to connect to more structures and also upgrading certain things. Then in towns, you have industry, which allows logistic structures such as factories, refineries, mass production facilities, storage depots, seaports, and a couple other items as they go through. Next, you have your occupied towns, which enables garrison houses and safe houses to be built. And then last but not least, you have your fortifications and airfields. Without this, you cannot upgrade your mortar houses, your coastal guns, and airfield structures. And airfields are world spawn. So ensure that things get teched as they are needed. You want your small garrison first, then industry, which is the rule of thumb I go with. Now let's talk about your stockpile actions. We're starting up at the top. You have every single item here. Then you have your small arms, which is items that you can typically carry with very little issue or encumbrance. Then your heavy items, such as in explosives, like your grenades, your AT rifles, your launchers, your mortars, your tripoded weapons, and your heavy armaments, which you carry as the person themselves. So there's an exception to the rule here, where you have your tank ammo, your 68 and 40 millimeter shells. They are not shoulder carry type items. Then you have your engineering equipment, where it is utilized mainly for base structures, for building, for gathering resources, unlocking vehicles with a wrench, getting intel with a radio backpack or a radio. Maybe getting information with binoculars from a safe distance. Or if you want to put mines in a minefield or lay loose ones, you have your crow's feet and your AT mines. Just a couple examples within there. Then you have your first aid items with your medical supplies, your blood plasma, trauma kit, first aid, and bandages, and your respawn tickets, your soldier supplies. These are extremely critical. Do not fall for somebody saying, "Oh, hey, always carry one unit." Don't. It's just a meme that people do to be mean to the new players. Next, you have your fuel and consumption materials, which would be from your basic materials or BMATs all the way down to wreckage and refined materials. And I will cover into this more in depth in the logistics video. Then you have your uniforms. When we talk about role specific, this is what we're talking about right here. I will cover more in depth on what each one of these do in a later video. And last but not least, you have your airplanes. This will be a much later video once I understand the finer nuances of air. So, you've gotten all this. You got your radio backpack, you got your binoculars, you got your weapon, maybe 2 clips of ammo, and a grenade, right? How do you equip all this? Well, you press tab to open up your inventory, and all you do is you left click the items that you want to equip. Now, this isn't an immediate, oh, let's just go and start shooting. No, you have to press your 1, 2, or 3 key in order to bring out the items that you have equipped. If you have the attachment, so long as you have the item with it, you'll click the bayonet or the osprey, and so long as it says allows buckhorn CCQ 18 bayonet attachment, or allows the osprey attachment as well. This is the osprey. This allows attachments to warden specific weapons. So all you would do is you would click that and it would go immediately into this area right here. But you pull your weapon out and you want to start shooting. You want to start, running a gun. But you notice up here in the top left how it says 0 out of 12 rounds, right? You have to press R to reload. And now you're good to go, but you're left clicking, you're not able to actually shoot. Well, you still need to aim and shoot where you want to go. This is not like Call of Duty. This is not like Battlefield. This is not like Rust or anything where you're going to have the reticle immediately for you. So in that aspect, you're going to hold the right mouse button and you're going to aim where you want. But I want you to pay attention where the reticle is at. You see how there's bloom? Where you're going to be aiming at is where it's a random chance for it. If you let the bloom come down to where it's pinpoint, you're able to fire a lot faster. Hang on. I'm just doing a video. I had to let him know, so he's not like freaking out. I still have 5 rounds, and keep in mind that if you press reload, your R button, it will consume them 5 that's remaining, and it will take the entire magazine. You do not retain the ammunition that you use. But, let's say you want to be more accurate and everything else at a very, very quick rate. if you press C while moving, you'll see that the bloom is coming down much faster. This allows for much more stability and much better aiming purposes. And also, if you're inside of a building, it's going to be a little complex to aim and shoot something. If you press C and ensure where you're aiming at, you'll see the yellow line, which is where the impact on distance will be. Basically, your elevation or your fall off line, if you will. That is where the final point of impact will be. So if I'm shooting at these barrels right here, you'll see that it's going directly over. But if I aim just before, you'll see that there's kind of a little nuanced distance here. Now you'll notice it said this structure does not take friendly fire. That's because this is a friendly structure and it is a world spawn structure. And the same thing with this, if I wanted to start shooting this, you'll see that it didn't give me that. World spawn structures give this item right here. This building does not take friendly fire. There are other structures and other things that that'll go through and give you that message as well, like G houses or garrison houses and maintenance tunnels, and I will cover that in the facility video. They will say this structure does not take friendly fire. There are certain ways to build the structures, but it cannot be done with, small arms. Now, if you pay attention to where the white line is, you'll notice about here is where it's solid. And I'm going to use the other end of the road as a focal point. So where it's ending is about right here whenever I'm fully aimed out. How that is your impact for a maximum effect for your rounds. Every single weapon aside from your 30 mil, 40 mil, 68, 94.5, and 75 millimeter shells and your artillery shells has this fall off line. Where the fall off is, you'll see it goes further beyond, and where the impact is, it'll be a mitigation on damage. So if I'm shooting right here at a maximum, at a straight up maximum ability, where that impact is, which would be right here, I would do max damage to this pillbox. Where that fall off is, anything farther than that white line, it will be a mitigating on damage. And it's not like it'll do a mitigation on return. So we've covered just the bare basics on infantry stuff and just getting started. But what about your tertiary weapon, your grenade? Well, just like you pulled your main weapon out by pressing 1, you press 2, you pull out your secondary or whatever you have in your secondary slot. You press 3. Now with grenades, it's a little different. You'll see that there's an arc. See that there's an arc. That's because grenades arc over and they will hit their intended target. Even if I had somebody right here, if they stood right there and I had that line impacting them, it would hit them. But if I'm just throwing it over, it won't. I'm gonna make sure there's not a vehicle coming because I don't want to pick somebody up. So with that, there are 2 specific types of grenade. You have your AT grenade, and then you have your delayed grenade with your Bomba Stones, your Harpas, which are made by the Wardens. Bomba Stones are made by the Colonials. You have your Tremolas, which I'll explain later in a different video, and your gas grenades. Tremolas can only be fired with the Lunaire. Gas grenades, Harpas, and gas grenades, Harpas, Bomba Stones, and Mammons can all be thrown by hand. So make sure, yep, they're coming this way. So all you do is you'll find your point of what you want to hit. Let's say there was a building right here and I wanted to go ahead and start hitting it, right? With Mammons, you don't need to hold it and then throw it. all you do is you just hold and throw. So I'm going to show you the difference between the hold and throw or the instant throw and then the hold and throw. You're going to laugh at this too. I see a lot of people doing this just to meme. So there's a structure right here. Actually, we'll use the clip so nobody freaks out. There's a let's say the clip is the structure. Just throw it and it'll impact. Now, if you hold the mammon, it's a live grenade. So you can hold this until it goes kaboom. And the fuse on it's actually pretty good. But I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of it because I don't want it to explode in my face. Boma stones, harpas, and gas grenades all do the same thing, except for they are a delayed fuse. Now, whenever we were in the home region, I mentioned everything on the left-hand side. Everything here is the baseline for this map and how the war plays out. You have your victory point conditions, where this number is the total amount you, as a faction, must get. And you are looking for any flag on the map that is a victory condition. So, for example, Reaching Trail, Brody Town. It's an enemy faction. It's an enemy faction territory. You will not have any information on it. However, we come over here to Bake Ridge, and you'll see down there where it says garrison activity medium, garrison size high, and wind condition, and then wind condition. The flags are the wind conditions. Without them, you do not win the war, and you do not win in this game. So, starting off up here, you have your encampments. These are meant for fast, temporary forward operating bases. They are very weak. They're not that strong to be able to hold anybody back for too long. But they do allow stockpiles and spawn points, provided you have the shirts inside the stockpile of the encampment itself. Next, we have keeps. You have a keep, which is a very old world spawn structure. Players can spawn and stockpile items in there. They are similar but much stronger than encampments and bunker bases. So the keeps that you have are a Westgate keep, and you follow this wall along, and you'll see Robin's Nest keep. Continue following, continue following. Continue following through Deadlands. Now this server's down because the devs are working on something, but there is a keep right here as well. And you continue going on and on and on all the way to here, where Skirmishire is. It's the last area where the bulwark goes. But there's also another keep up here as well. The Great Warden Dam Keep. There's not that many on the world, so it's just nice to know that a few of them exist. Next, you have your safe houses. Safe houses are a garrison house. A garrison strong point used in the defense of a town. Players can spawn and stockpile items here. Meaning, just like your encampments, players can spawn at a safe house. They can put items in, as you see here, where you can see the different upgrades and the items in there. But as far as people stockpiling stuff on the Dead Branch, I don't foresee it happening too much. There we go. So you can see there's a little small stockpile within the eastern safe house over here in Bake Ridge. These will more than likely be next to town bases and strategic points within any hex. Next, you have a relic base. These are basically your forts. Much like your town bases and safe houses, players can spawn and set or you can put stockpile items in there as well to ensure a push or a defense if needed. Next, you have your bunkers, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1 bunkers are your basic items, and I'll get more into bunkers whenever I start covering the facility video, because there are certain aspects that you need to pay attention to when constructing a bunker. The bunkers are essentially your spawn points and immediate stockpiles for pushing a front or for ensuring defense of a very, very large facility. So when we get to the facility video, I will cover that. Next, we have what is known as border bases. And I do not see one that has anything active for border bases. But if this area in Callan's Descent wasn't green, basically somebody went forward and captured Callan's Descent, you would see border bases spawn on this side of the border, this side of the border, on this side of the border, and this side of the border. Border bases only become active when the invading faction towards a hex, say Silken Shelf to Morgan's Crossing. When everybody from Silken Shelf or the Colonials went to Morgan's Crossing and we captured everything on here, you would see border bases start to pop up. Whoever can capture it first will have either a foothold or a defensive point to keep people from continuing to advance. Now you have your tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 town bases. These are all noted by the stars above the town bases. You'll see how this one has 3 stars. That's a tier 3, meaning that it has the required tech, items that are in orange. It has the required technology to be upgraded to the required base. Here's a tier 1. Liberation Point does not have any tech. If I selected tier 1 off, you will see Abandoned Ward, which also doesn't have the tech required. If you're in tier 2, there's almost never any tier 2 relics, so it's kind of hard to do that. But tier 3, you'll have more than not a lot of them. And last but not least, a long hook. A long hook essentially is a infantry style storage point for invasions. Most call them yeet hooks or rocket hooks, or what you would have with it. It has a very vast stockpile, similar to a town base or a bunker base or a safe house. Infantry can spawn on it so long as it is not next to the border, which again, I have the better map mod. This red area is basically here within this red area. You cannot deploy the large ship. So here for the long hook, infantry would spawn on, get their kit ready, and start pushing for an advance. And also, long hooks can build landing craft so that infantry can safely get to shore without drowning. Because if you see this as I'm running, this is my stamina. The stamina here will go in in water if you are swimming. This is intel being transmitted, meaning if I have a radio backpack or a radio, I'll be able to see anything on the map. Next, you have your resources. Your basic material. Everything starts from salvage. Salvage, you're able to collect and turn into BMATs at a refinery, which is annotated by a hammer. And over here in Bacche Ridge, we have a refinery. You basically gather the salvage from a salvage field, place the salvage in a truck or in a storage container or anything that can or anything, or you can even walk it to the refinery, but that's not logistically simple. Next, you have your component field annotated. All right, so before we continue, salvage fields are annotated by the screws. Component fields is annotated by the hexagonal nut. These are used for making tanks for your more advanced style weapons, for your uh, different type of vehicles that require refined materials. Again, you take them to the refiner, and so that you can see what the final product looks like, let's go ahead and head over to the refiner, and I'll show you what the silhouette looks like. But you'll understand. The fellow that ran over. But you'll understand what I'm talking about in the aspect of things. Also, decline anything that you're able to. Hold the space bar. Don't just press it, but hold the space bar. Come up here, come down this way. Construction yards I will cover on the building and facility video. But this is what your refinery looks like. It looks similar to a storage depot, with one exception. When you access the inventory, you'll see the basic materials, the diesel, the explosive powder, the refined materials, the heavy explosive powder, the gravel, iron alloy, copper alloy, and aluminum alloy. Here's your stockpile right here. So I'm just covering the basic resources for now, and I will cover everything in depth whenever I get to the logistics and facility videos. Next, we have a sulfur field, which looks like a rock. And if I can find one, I'll be able to show. Here. Over in Great March, there are two of them. This looks like it looks like a rock. This is used to refine at the refinery for heavy explosive powder for your artillery, and larger style shells and certain building materials that you will need in facilities. Next, we have coal fields. Coal is a very interesting resource, as you need it to make coke and gravel. Coke is needed for an assembly material, which is used in facility buildings, and gravel is your foundation for building foundations for your facility buildings. Without any gravel, you cannot build your facility buildings. Next, we have oil fields, which provide needed resources such as petrol, heavy oil, or hoil, H-O-I-L, or E-oil, or enriched oil. Heavy oil and enriched oil are needed for assembly materials 4s and 5s, which are made in a specific facility building, which I will cover in that building as well. And then last but not least, on the basic items, you have your salvage mine, component mine, and your sulfur mine. Your salvage mines look kind of like a dual building type aspect. If you played Command & Conquer, it looks like the ore refinery. Your component mine looks more like a headquartered style building, and then your sulfur mine looks more like a metalworks type building. Just how I identified them before getting this map mod. So here's what all three look like when they're toggled on. And if I needed sulfur and BMAS, I would go to Petridia over in Acrythia. Last but not least, we have the offshore platforms, which, when the tech is researched all the way through, the ability to build this up with a construction vehicle and be able to take coal to make heavy oil. a lot just within bases and resources. So now let's talk about your structures, your hospitals. There are certain things that you can do. You can build a city hospital if it's been destroyed and not immediately built, or you can build a field hospital. I'll cover every building whenever it gets to the building video. Hospitals are a large medical facility for treating critically wounded soldiers returning from the battlefield. This one is your airfield, or not airfield, but more than likely your underground fortress or some specific structure. For the life of me, I do not know what this one is, because at the current time of this video, there is no update to this mod. I will know more whenever I get to it, or if somebody understands what the icon next to the field hospital, or the hospital and the garage, I would greatly appreciate you put in the comments below. The garage. The garage is a small-scale vehicle production center and is also used to repair the armor for any allied vehicle that you can make. It does not repair enemy-style vehicles, meaning if you go capture a warden vehicle, or if you're playing a warden, you go capture a colonial vehicle, you cannot take it to the garage to repair its armor. It's best if you try your best to keep that living as long as possible. Refinery, it takes the raw resources and makes it into a refined material, such as BMET, or your basic materials, or your refined materials, or your heavy explosive powder from your salvage, your components, and your sulfur. Your shipyard. This is where you can build your iron barges, your iron ships, your barges, your different style small scale vehicles. And it's also where you can repair the armor of those aquatic vehicles. Similar to the garage for land-based, and I'm probably going to hurt here. Yeah. Also, if you're going to go down the cliff, mind the distance. Similar to your land-based vehicles, with the garage, the shipyards, you can repair the armor for aquatic vehicles. I'm wanting to get to a shipyard so I can show the different style boats that you can make for the colonials, and I will cover the warden one in a later video. So from here, this is what your this is what your overview will look like. So you'll have your freighter, your iron ship. This is a neutral faction. This carries 5 shipables and is very, very useful for when you need it. Your barge can transport vehicles, equipment, and personnel over large bodies of water. Your light freighter, which is a very new vehicle, it goes from seaport to seaport. And then you have faction specific, such as your Bellwether Vac, Bavac, your Strider, your Lucian, and then your Charon. I will cover these in another video. Also, for your garage and your shipyard, all you would need is 50 BMATs for your shipyard, 100 BMATs for the garage. You put them in the shipyard inventory. You click full repair. If it doesn't require repair, it'll tell you. But if it does indeed say, let me get at least one. There we go. Come here, and then vehicle full repair, armor repair. It'll say that if it's needed. So moving on, we have our engineering center. This is where you can check where your tech is for the war. Now in Dev Branch, all technology, everything is unlocked. So if you're playing, if you're actually in a live war and not on Dev Branch or on what's called Resistance phase, in between wars, you will not have access to all the items, all the weapons, all the vehicles, or anything of that nature. So with your engineering center, all you do is you head up to it, check where the status is, and you're able to see where your technology is for that current point to be able to make the items that you need. So engineering center, here you have, your vehicles and your structures all the way down. And I will have another video covering all of this. That is the purpose of the engineering center. I'm gonna move over here so I don't get shot or ran over. Next, we have your observation towers. Observation towers act as a warning response for aquatic vehicles. You'll see how on the Better Map mod, I have a ring that goes through it. This will show everything within that ring. It's used to not only see aquatic vehicles, but if you have an invading force over here and you have no active intel, you turn to point it towards the combat. It is used to provide real-time information. Your factories are used to make small quantities of your items, or your ammo, your small arms, your heavy arms, etc. It makes 4 crates at a time, provided you have the required materials for it. The difference here is you cannot queue up vehicles or at the factory for the simple reason it just doesn't make that. Your mass production facility, it can queue up vehicles and shippables. However, for those, it is vehicle wise at max 5 crates per order, and other shippables you can have 9 crates per order. Same thing with everything else. I will go more in depth on both of these on the logistics video. Your seaport is your primary hub right next to any town base or anything that is along a large body of water. That is a primary hub for crated materials to be transported to the front and or dropped off at any bunker base. Storage depot is your land-based version of the seaport. The only difference here is your seaports can hold your iron ships and other aquatic items loosely, whereas storage depots cannot. They don't just hold crated materials, they hold unpackaged vehicle and shippable crates as well. Your construction yard, used to hand build certain shippable materials and defensive weapons. Nothing more than a couple refined materials or, a couple 100 BMAX. That'll do. Your coastal guns, and a lot of people have an issue with this. The description reads, an old coastal gun or an old coastal defense gun that has been reused for the defense of key locations against naval bombardment. Unless they have fixed it, coastal guns do not fire on large ships. We do not know if they fire on medium ships because the medium ships are new for the colonials and wardens. We don't know if they fire on medium ships yet. More information to come when I do the naval video. Your maintenance tunnels. These provide critical supplies to prevent any and all structures from decaying. And what decay is, it is overall usage of the time spent in the world for player-built buildings, facilities, and unpackaged and dropped shippables. Your storm cannons, very large structures. I don't think anybody has any built because nobody's building on the difference. If you see this icon, it is a heavy fixed position that has a 2,000 meter range, and it can fire across hexes. Same thing with the railstorm cannons. Code name Grand. Your intel centers. When people ask to point an IC or an intel center at a specific area, it will ping every watchtower in that specific area that is enemy if it's tapped, and provide intel for them. It's also needed to launch a nuke or a V1 rocket. The rockets and everything and its functionality will come in the video when I cover facilities. Weather station provides intel on weather for operations and is actually useful now for aerial operations. You need to know whether or not you're going to be flying or fighting in a snowstorm or a tier 5 rainstorm or anything of that nature. It's where weather stations become useful. Your infantry kit factory. These can be built to provide actual uniforms. These are all broken down into uncrated items. You take them to a storage depot, you submit them uncrated, they become crated, and then you can utilize them and not drop it off to a bunker or underground fortress. Your crate transfer station is used for storing crates of equipment and manufactured at nearby facilities. It's used for quick storage on uncrated items and essentially used to move it up. Next, we have your 3 different other transfer stations. You have your liquid transfer station, your material transfer station, and resource transfer station. Very simple to understand. Liquids are for fuel. Materials is for facilities. And resources is for resources. Your small assembly and large assembly stations. Small assembly stations make the smaller items and upgraded variants of tanks and other vehicles. Large assembly stations create the larger vehicles, like your trains and your battle tanks and your self-propelled guns or SPGs and other items of that nature. And if I'm not mistaken, this will also have the same notion on being able to make the planes as well. Next, we have your dry dock, which is used for building large ships. From your frigates to your battleships, destroyers, submarines, your long hooks, your bluefins, etc. Dry docks are used for that capability, and you'll typically see them in larger bodies of water, mainly up in Howe County in this area for ACNS. And I've seen at sometimes Base Encino up in this body of water for actually up here, for the best possible defensive area. Next, we have your Field Modification Center, which is used to vet vehicles to give them a little bit of an armor boost. And you'll note the difference in a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, etc. type of vehicle. These can range from the use of it can be from basic materials to armats to assembly materials and so on. Then you have your emplacement houses, which are your mortar houses. These are pinpoint damage or pinpoint firing style structures, and it is very useful to know what ammo is in here and how far to fire. From the middle of this red ring, from here to the very edge of any of that red ring, is 100 meters. Next, you have your bluefin, which is a mobile version of a seaport. Very, very, very useful for establishing a forward beachhead and moving up a vast amount of materials from either the north to the south, east to the west, south to the north, west to the east. Next, you have your rocket platform and your actual rocket, rocket. These are built whenever a front's not moving and you need to cause mass devastation for your enemy. I will cover these in another video. And then you got your target and your ground zero. This is where you are targeting the area. Say people wanted to nuke Jade Cove over here. Well, you would build it, and you would build these two areas in a fortified area and target Jade Cove. After 48 days of fueling, it'll launch, and then it'll leave an impact crater. Next is your locations. Your locations are basically the areas that show, or your region zones, I'm sorry. Region zones show who has what. If I just do this, it just looks like a blank ass map. But if I do this, you can see what faction controls what, as well as what region or sub-region of a hex is where. So I want you to take a look at Sun's Hollow, The Pits, Brine Glen, Callahan's Boot, and Salt Forms. If I click off region zones, it all looks like they blend together. But if I click region zones on, you'll see the specific regions on each area. Now, one thing I skipped over and I wanted to for a specific region, or reason, are your map posts. You have your squad map posts. If you are in a squad, you are able to see in post provided you are above a certain rank. Your regiment map post, if you are in a regiment, you can see in post. Same thing, provided you are above a certain rank. Intel right here will let people know exactly what's going on. Then you have your facility map post, which will show, what facility is where or what type of facility, and so on and so forth. You just hover over, much like you saw me hover over here, where people say it's truce, leave alone, etc. You'll see whether it's a fuel facility, a resource facility, a materials facility, vehicle, etc. Your logistics map posts show what is needed out on the front. Nobody has one posted. And then you have your public. This shows where everybody's at and all the other stuff. So with that, that's just your basic functioning on how the posts and your maps go. Now your region zones, I think I've covered. Yeah. Okay, locations. This will show what area is what, even if you take off. Oh, well, you got to zoom in order to take on or off. So keep locations on so you know exactly where you're going. I'm going to keep region zones enabled so it's not going to be like, oh my God, I'm blind. Railroad tracks, very simple. It shows where the railroads are. It'll also show enemy provided you have intel on that specific area. And then intelligence. You have your outpost, or some sort of understanding where your outposts are basically your bunker base cores and everything within there. You have your structure. These are actually watchtowers. You'll be able to see friendly and enemy, provided they are in range of a specific area. The range is 80 meters. Now, I have seen them stretch out to 100, but it's far and few in between. Then you have your defenses. These are your pillboxes and actual, like, bunker-based garrison-style defenses. Next, you have your artillery. These are your 120 millimeter, your 150s. These can also, I've seen it at times. I'm almost certain it was a bug or a glitch. I could be wrong. Your mobile rocket vehicles and such. Next, you have your field hospitals, similar to your hospitals in town. Similar to here. Your field hospitals are used to create church from bodies, used to create different, or use a whole different medical supplies and everything else. Next, you have your facility buildings. This will ensure you are able to see who is where in conjunction towards what. Next, you have vehicles, which will show friend and foe, provided the foe is within range of a watchtower. Next, you have your large ship icon annotated by the two squares on top of each other. And I'm almost certain that there is no large ship that I can actually see, which I'm not able to see. Next, you have your infantry. If you're playing as Colonial, you're green. If you're playing as Warden, you're blue. Last but not least, you have your world spawn aircraft. Or not world spawn. You have your aircraft. The map mod that I have has not been able to update any of it, so nobody knows what's going on with that. And then you have your war achievements. Each one of these goes, if you just hover over it, it'll show exactly what the condition for it is. It's a lot, I know, but it's the very bare bones basics of Foxhole. The next video will encompass frontline fighting and strategic placement on where you want to go as a frontlineman. I know it's a very lengthy video, but again, most do not break it down the way I do. Till then, I will see you later. And as always, enjoy. And that's basically it with the basics of Foxhole. I know it's a long video, and I appreciate you watching all the way through, but trust me, if you're brand new to the game, it's going to help you in the long run. So with that, if you liked the video, hit that thumbs up. If you did, hit the thumbs down. If you would, I'd appreciate the sub to the channel. It would help me grow the channel more. And, you know, just stay tuned for the next one. The next one, we will be talking about the different roles and frontlining. And then we'll just continue going on from there. So again, I appreciate you guys hanging out, and I appreciate y'all watching the video all the way up to this point. Take care.